Welcome to the Draft Nut Podcast live on the Blue Chip Scouting YouTube channel and Twitter accounts. Welcome again. Hey, listen, I'm a happy camper right now, Devin. I think you know why. Look at this. You see this? Your boy's a happy camper today, especially after the news of Taylor Moton, Carolina Panthers right tackle. He signed his extension to stay with the team right before the deadline for franchise tag players to get their extensions in. And if they don't get it in, of course, they have to play the whole year on the tag. So, Devin, I want to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about Taylor Moton's extension?
Well, I know for you and a lot of Panthers fans, you guys have wanted this for months now, and took a little bit longer than expected to get a deal done. But I think they were probably playing the waiting game, and see what some other tackles might get. I think the Ryan Ramczyk deal certainly played a huge part in how much money that Moton ended up getting. Which was about $1 million, I think 1.2 million less per year than Ryan Ramczyk. So Ramczyk kind of set the market for right tackles, and Moton is easily the best lineman on the Panthers right now. And a deal needed to get done. They needed to get something going and get their right tackle for the future now locked in, and they were able to do that. So I think it was important. It's another important building block for the Panthers. Is now they are in year 2 of the Matt Rule regime, and they look to kind of build upon what they did last year. And a big part of that is bringing some continuity to the offensive line. You're obviously bringing Sam Darnold, and it'll be his first year starting in Carolina. So you want to make sure that his, it won't be his blind side, but kind of his front side is covered. Mm-hmm. And have a reliable right tackle. Now, obviously, left tackle is going to be the next thing for the Panthers to get, but they're definitely building blocks for a future.
Taylor Moton, for Panther fans, they have been praising him for so long. Since he got drafted, he was a fan favorite for a while. He's super underrated, in my opinion. This is one of the more cleaner offensive tackles the game has to offer, in my opinion. He really does have a nice old mean streak in the run game, and he only gave up 3 sacks last year, which is a career best. I'm expecting that to be even better this upcoming season. He is truly one of their cornerstone pieces on the offensive side of the ball. And he has been one of the more consistent players on that football team for the last couple of years or so. Moton, this contract is very well deserving for him. I'm very happy for Moton. I'm happy for the Panthers locking him down for the next 5 years now. The contract, I'm looking here on Spot Rack here on my phone. It is total money is the same as Lane Johnson has, so he's tied with Lane Johnson. But Lane Johnson has the advantage in terms of total money guaranteed. He has just over $54.5 million guaranteed, while Moton has 43. Moton, in terms of total players in the league at the offensive tackle position, he is currently tied for 8th with Johnson, but he's also 3rd or tied for 2nd with Lane Johnson. So it's not Ramczyk money. It's not, but it's the money that we kind of expected for Moton. He was going to get paid a lot of money because he deserves to get paid a lot of money. And the Panthers, from what Joe Pearson of The Athletic, who covers the Carolina Panthers, what he had tweeted out earlier was the team and Moton's representatives had been talking for quite some time about an extension. It was just kept up under wraps for a good bit. And Ian Cummings puts a little comment here. Him and Brady Christensen could make a nice duo. And something that was brought up before the extension, when Panther fans were being so pessimistic about whether Moton was going to be back on the team or not in 2022, because, they're so used to some of their favorite players not coming back to the team during the Marty Hurney era, or both Marty Hurney era, both Marty Hurney eras. So to see a regime caring about the players that matter on this football team, such as Moton, this is big for the franchise. This is big for the front office, as it gives fans and the rest of the organization more confidence that, hey, this is a GM that cares about his star players and wants to bring them back. They could have brought back James Bradbury last season or last offseason, and they wouldn't have had that huge issue at corner that they did last year. And Bradbury is now one of the better corners in the league. So now you're able to keep one of the better right tackles in the league, even though Moton may be the third best offensive tackle in his own division. It was important for Carolina to bring him back because he is a cornerstone piece on that offense with DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. And I'm just saying, if Darnold is able to fix some of the issues he's had for quite some time and he's able to recreate some magic that we saw at USC before he got drafted, maybe Sam Darnold is that cornerstone piece. We just don't know. We'll just have to wait and see once the season gets underway. But very, very good on the Carolina Panthers to bring back Moton. I'm very excited for Moton, and he definitely should be voted to the Pro Bowl at some point, either this year or next year. I'm hoping it's this year because he has been very well deserving of a Pro Bowl nod for quite some time, and that would be big for his incentives, probably in his contract as well. Something that was talked about before the contract was whether or not Brady Christensen was going to be like sort of the replacement for Moton. And I thought about it. Christensen is quite athletic. He was a really good offensive tackle coming out BYU, and he did have some technical issues, and he did have his own flaws to his game, but he was quite versatile, quite athletic. They're going to play him wherever they're able to. He's going to be in the competition for the left tackle spot, and because there's not a lot of intriguing talent at left tackle for Carolina. I mean, you got Cameron Irving, Greg Little, Trent Scott, and Brady Christensen battling for that left tackle starting job. I'm expecting Christensen to start out as a guard, and maybe later on transitioning to the left tackle spot. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, because the Panthers really need consistency, not only on the offensive line, but at left tackle. They have not had consistent play at left tackle since Jordan Gross, and some people may make the argument that Michael Orr was consistent at left tackle for a little bit when he was playing for the Carolina Panthers during the 2015 and 2016 seasons. But I think that, and again, major plus bringing back Moton, but you're going to have to figure out the rest of that offensive line. Can John Miller be as consistent as he was last year? He was quite consistent last year, especially in the run game. Can Matt Paradis finally, really in his last year on the team, most likely, can he recreate some magic that we saw in Denver before he got hurt and kind of rise up and become one of the better safeties in the league, probably a top 10 safety in the league like he was when he first signed? It's going to be very interesting to see what they do along that offensive line. No position other than right tackle is safe. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Carolina Panthers do along the offensive front.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, they need some more and more continuity and consistency on that offensive line. had their struggles last year protecting Teddy Bridgewater, and he was able to even kind of make up for some of the misses because he was able to get outside of the pocket. But with Sam Darnold, you're really going to have to be a lot better. I mean, he can move a little bit, but he doesn't really. He's not going to escape, you know, free blitzers consistently. So that's going to be something to be cleaned up as well, and just continue to build and develop. I mean, Christensen could be a really good player for them in a year or two. I think he's going to need a little bit of development. Um, and we'll see where he ends up playing. Whether at guard or tackle, he has that versatility to play both. I guess it kind of depends on how that tackle battle goes and who kind of emerges as a starter. Christian could maybe get some time as a rookie. If that position really is a struggle throughout the season. So we'll see. But I mean, the Panthers are in a good spot right now. They got one of their best offensive linemen right now, locked in for the next couple of years. So they'll have to continue to develop and try and find out the best combination to put out there, so they have the best chance to win.
I want to talk about some of the other guys that were franchise tagged this offseason. Brendan Sharif, Marcus Williams, is some of the other big names that were franchise tagged. Cam Robinson. What are their expectations coming into the year, especially for your guy at safety, and how crucial is it for these guys to really prove it this year that they deserve to stay on the roster, get a long-term extension next offseason, with whether it's with their current team right now or it's with another team down the road?
Well, specifically with Marcus Williams, I think he has proven that he can be, and I think he's one of the better safeties in NFL already currently. And I think for him, it was showing consistency, and he looked really good in 2020. I know in 2019 he had some inconsistencies, and really since that Minnesota Miracle, he wasn't quite the same as he was his rookie season. He was very dynamic. I think he almost led the team, if he didn't, in interceptions as a rookie. So he was dynamic at his first season in the league, and then the next two seasons had some inconsistencies. But last year, he really put it all together and looked really good in the back end for the Saints, and kind of helped bolster that secondary that was constantly looking for, not only that second corner to be consistent, but also consistency in the secondary, in the back half as well. So I wouldn't rule out that an extension would come sometime during the season. I know that the Saints, I believe they did that with, I think they did that with Alvin Kamara last year. They did an extension during the season. So I don't think you can rule out that they may, go ahead and sign them. But as for some of those other guys, I know Cam Robinson has been pretty solid for Jacksonville. So I think really you can't rule out an extension for some of those guys during the season. It's just tricky sometimes before the deadline. But it's kind of a gamble to play on the tag. We've seen some players play on the tag and end up getting hurt. Dak Prescott is a player that comes to mind. He played on the tag, and we know what happened to him last year. So it's a risk for sure. But I think a lot of those guys who ended up not signing long term, even if they don't end up signing a deal by end of the season, I would expect most of them to be back at their current teams. Especially for the Saints with Marcus Williams, considering they don't really have a replacement for him on the roster, or I don't think you're going to be able to go out and get a safety in the draft and be able for him to produce as immediate as he did. So I think a lot of those guys are like in a position where the team needs them. They're the top at their position, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch to see who ends up getting those long-term deals and who doesn't, because if a couple of those guys don't, they'll be on another team, and a team will surely overpay for their services. So we'll see what happens over the course of the season. But like I said, I wouldn't rule out potential extensions during the season.
I could see there's one player I think that's having issues with the team. Like they're not really in a good place. All that. It's the Jets and Marcus May. Marcus May is on the franchise tag. The Jets haven't been that great with some of their star talent in the past. But this is a newer GM, Joe Douglas. He's drafted well. Joe Douglas has definitely drafted well over the last couple of seasons, and he is really brought on some nice talent, trying to help rebuild the New York Jets. Something that we'll have to monitor even next season, because if the relationship between May and the Jets isn't improved throughout the season, or by the time the next offseason rolls around, May's probably going to be on another team next year. So that's something we'll definitely have to keep an eye on. I really can't think of all the other names that, other than Cam Robinson and Brandon Sharif and Marcus Williams, that are on the franchise tag off the top of my head. Do you have that list at all? I will. Don't think I can look at what Schefter tweeted earlier.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see.
Godwin and Robinson, they're playing on the tag, I think.
Chris Godwin as well.
Yeah.
He'll be playing on the tag.
I think he's going to get a deal down the road.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about.
Yeah, Allen Robinson on the list as well. Justin Simmons, Leonard Williams, and Marcus Williams. So
I thought Simmons got an extension though, right?
Did he?
I think he did.
I'm looking. Let's see. Doesn't look like they did, because I'm looking at the NFL.com tracker, and it updated. Might not be updated. Let me see here.
It's Schefter tweeted earlier. Dak, Leonard Williams, Justin Simmons, and Taylor Moton get new deals. So Simmons did get an extension. I don't remember what exactly the extension was. So yes, we are.
I know for sure that Allen Robinson will play on the tag. Marcus Williams as well. So 10 players ended up being tagged. Ian Rappaport reported this on Twitter. So it's Marcus Williams, Marcus May, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, and Cam Robinson are will play on the tag for the first time, and Brandon Sharif will play on the tag for the second time. So in total, it is 6 players.
Something we'll have to monitor throughout the season and heading into next offseason. I want to talk about the article that I came out with yesterday morning, and I didn't have the chance to really comment on it once it was released, because I was driving down to Atlanta. I'll just tell you what, Florida drivers are the worst, especially when they're in North Carolina and Georgia. I got cut off twice by Georgia drivers, and one of them was going 60 in the fast lane in the 70s. So, yeah, it was a great day of driving. I loved it. So let's move on from that. So my article yesterday basically broke down who I had watched over the last few weeks or so, because I really haven't watched that many prospects. Real quick, let me pull up on my tier value board who I have graded. Let me pull it up here. So these are the following players I have graded. This is in order. This is what my board essentially looks like right now, and it's not a lot of players. I think it's maybe 10 players, if I'm seeing this correctly. Excuse me. So Kayvon Thibodeau and Kyle Hamilton are currently my top 2 players. They have a blue chip top 10 grade of a 95. Andrew Booth and Derek Stingley both have a 92 first round grade. Garrett Wilson has a 90, which is a first-round value grade. Malik Willis and Spencer Rattler are tied for QB1 with an 86.5, which is a late first round. Isaiah Spiller is my only running back right now with a first-round grade. He has an 86, which is the lowest grade I can give for a first-round player. Breece Hall, running back out of Iowa State, he has an 84. Sam Howell has quarterback out of North Carolina. He has an 81. And then Matt Corral, quarterback out of Ole Miss, he has a 75, which is the lowest I can give a player for a third-round grade. So he is kind of leaning it there towards a day 3 grade, which is not ideal. But again, like I've talked about many times about Corral, he's got the tools. He just needs the mental stuff just has to get better. So, and like pre-snap and post-snap. So that has to be better. The players, how many players do I have? I got 11 players I currently have graded, and I'm planning on watching Drake Jackson later this evening. So I'm excited to watch Jackson here later tonight. Kyle Krabs of the Draft Network. He had when I was listening to a couple of the podcasts from Draft Dudes the other day or yesterday when I was driving down to Atlanta, he was raving about Drake Jackson, and I think Draft Dudes came out today with a little episode of the podcast talking about some of the edge rushers, some of the top edge rushers of this draft class, including Drake Jackson. I have yet to listen to that. I wanted to watch Jackson's tape and then listen to Krabs' opinion on that. So shout out to Kyle Krabs for being the simp of Drake Jackson in terms of summer scouting. So I'm excited to see Jackson. I watched a few minutes of his tape, and the first thing that really stood out was his length. But anyways, back to the article. Basically, I listed out some for the players I really, really liked, and I just want to kind of dive into Kayvon Thibodeau, Garrett Wilson, Hamilton, and Willis. Those guys really just really made me like excited. Like when I was watching their tape, they had a very, very fun tape to watch. Wilson was probably one of my favorite watches because I think right now he is the best receiver, not only this upcoming season for the 2022 draft, but in college football in general. He was, and like I said in the article, he was either great, excellent, great, or good in the 10 traits I use to evaluate wide receivers. The 10 traits we use at Blue Chip Scouting to evaluate wide receivers. I can't speak today. Evaluate wide receivers. For now, Wilson is my highest graded receiver, 90 overall, first round grade, highest graded receiver for the upcoming season. So Wilson just basically, like on tape, he is just so sudden with his route running. He is explosive. And I was tempted to put in this article, he's not like Jerry Jeudy explosive son, that type of stuff. But Wilson is quite sudden and explosive, and it's also very effective on all 3 levels of the field with his route running. And I think a lot of that is in help of his incredible change of direction skills, because sometimes like mid route he'll stop mid route. Like some of the stuff is similar to what Jeudy does. It's just not on the elite level that Jeudy did it. Judy's the best route runner I've ever evaluated. So I'm not going to like say Wilson's the best route runner I've ever evaluated. No way. Wilson is very good as a route runner, but not Jeudy level, but just kind of trying to get in the sense of a mind of a fan, like, okay, what type of route runner is Wilson? He is similar to Jeudy, but he's not on the elite level that Jeudy was, if that makes sense. Wilson, in terms of his ball skills, contested catch ability, ball tracking, he is so good in those areas on all 3 levels as well. He tracks the ball well, makes great adjustments to the football, can go above the rim to make incredible catches. I think everyone remembers his leaping catch against Clemson down the right sideline um, in the college football playoff a couple years ago, where he just basically used that 43-inch vertical he has reportedly and just yanked the ball over the corner of I think it was Daring. I think it was Kendrick that he jumped over. It was either Kendrick or it was Booth. I'm not sure which one, but it was one of those corners, and he just murdered them at the catch point. He is an alpha at the catch point. Great body control. And while he did play in the slot a little bit, he did have some reps where he did play as an X and showed the ability to play as an X on the boundary. And I think you'll see him in that role next year. You'll see him play in that X more on the boundary as he looks to really improve his stock a little bit more throughout the draft process or throughout the season and throughout the draft process. There's just not really anything wrong in Wilson's game other than he had a couple drops against Penn State. Like there is a lot to like Wilson's tape.
Yeah, he's a very impressive player. Haven't actually gotten to sit down and look at him in full and actually scout him, but just from watching live last year, from watching some of the defenses tape that I've watched this year, like I've watched Nebraska defensive tape against Ohio State, Penn State as well, also the Rutgers game. And Wilson is just a phenomenal athlete and player. Him and Chris Olave make an excellent duo, probably the best duo in college football, to be honest. And while, Olave is a much more technical route runner and just all around complete player, Wilson has clearly the higher ceiling and can be the first receiver taken off the board potentially next spring. So very, very exciting player and someone that I'm definitely looking forward to watch probably later in this kind of summer scouting, but definitely looking forward to getting to him before the season starts.
I know you have a few prospects you want to talk about today, and then I want to talk about something else that really erupted in the Blue Chip Scouting group chat earlier today. I really want to – it's been nagging at me all through most of the day, but let's talk about the prospects you've watched over the last couple of days. I don't remember some of the names you had watched. Let me pull up the text real quick and tell the viewers.
Yeah, so I was gonna get to kind of some of the bigger names like Linderbaum, some offensive linemen.
Linderbaum.
I ended up not getting to those, but I did get to a few other players that are still kind of off the radar and kind of caught my eye. And I don't even know how I ended up watching UTSA film, but I did. So the first player I want to talk about is Rashad Wisdom. I know my guy Ryan Roberts had talked about him a few weeks ago, but I actually sat down and looked at him, and he's a really impressive player. Really built well, and someone that just comes down with bad intentions. He's like one of those kind of throwback safeties where he will come down and kind of knock you out. There's a play against UTEP in particular that I'm thinking about where he came downhill and absolutely lit up the guy. And it was a clean hit. It wasn't even targeting or anything like that. That just a sample of what you get with him. So
was the hit more like the guy just went off his feet and came to the ground?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it was that type of hit. But I'm pulling up his kind of measurables right now so you get a kind of a better idea. So Rashad Wisdom is a rising junior, 5'10", 205. And he plays, with his hair on fire. I mean, he's all over the field. He played mainly as a slot corner his first season as a freshman, as a true freshman. And he was so good, as a true freshman that they had to have him on the field. And he showed the ability to not only be able to guard players from the slot, but he has range. He can get over to as a single high, as a two high safety. He can get to the ranges he needs to. And he can get from sideline to sideline. And I'm not sure he'll even end up being a 2022 guy since he's a true junior at UTSA. He might just wait till 2023, but really impressive film. Really comes downhill, like I said, with bad intentions. Can run the alley really well. Needs to clean up. He needs a little bit more experience playing at safety since he played slot corner solely his freshman season as a nickel. And but I'm really impressed with what he can bring in terms of athletic ability, speed, ability to tackle in the open field and in space, coming downhill and making plays on the ball. Very impressed with the player he is, and what he produced as a true sophomore. He finished the season with 95 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, had 4 interceptions, 5 passes defense, and 2 forced fumbles. So he has the ball production you look for. Really has some nice skills as well, and very impressed with the player he is. I mean, he's really, really good, and I'm looking forward to him being, someone that we talk about during the season and even heading into next summer if he doesn't declare this year. So really good player. And then another guy that is kind of from that Conference USA realm, was Prudy Calderon. So I want to give people a little bit of insight because I talked about this with AJ Schulte, but the Rice defense is really, really good. Like they're probably the best in that conference, and I decided to kind of take a look, and I wasn't really, expecting a whole bunch, but Prudy Calderon really, really caught my eye, and showed that he can possibly he's probably a day 3 pick if anything. He's not overly fast, not overly athletic, but he's very sticky in man coverage. He's a defensive back for Rice. Plays safety, but I think he's at his best in as a nickel or in the slot. He does really good in man coverage, being able to stay attached to the hip, make plays on the football, kind of has nice reaction ability as well. I think he's a tick slow as a safety, so that's why I think he might stick better as a nickel. He's a tick slow getting to his range in kind of as a dual safety, and there are times where he takes some bad angles as well, on runners, and he's a solid tackler overall, but I think he could be a little better in the angles that he attacks and whatnot. But those two guys kind of stood out to me, kind of off the beaten type guys that I was really impressed with, and both have draftable grades. I think already. I think Wisdom has the much higher upside because he's still learning the safety position and he's still kind of growing as a player. But those are two guys that kind of impressed me. And then I filed a scouting report for this player, Trey McBride, the tight end out of Colorado State. Hot take, I think he's a top 5 tight end in this class. And I think he's not getting the hype he deserves because he plays in the Mountain West and not a lot of people are watching Colorado State, just in general. But I just finished filing a report on him. I got a 3rd round grade out of him, 76 out of 100. I think that's, for most tight ends, I think it's a pretty solid grade because, he's not, first of all, he's not going to be a Kyle Pitts. He's not super athletic, but he is athletic. He is an athletic player. So he doesn't have the greatest long speed, but I think he has enough speed to be able to attack seams. And he's at his best blocking. He's a tenacious blocker. He puts people on the ground and is absolutely dominant at the point of attack. Kind of reminds me of, and this isn't a comp or anything, but he kind of reminds, his blocking tenacity reminds me a little bit of George Kittle. Like he will put you in the ground. Like he won't stop until you are out of the play completely. And he gets after it for sure. Very physical player. Really good contested catcher. And that kind of helps with his inability to really separate as a natural route runner. but he uses his body really well. He's 6'4", 260, really thickly built. Can bounce off, can tackles. He can bounce, off of defenders, and defenders have a hard time bringing him down. He's kind of one of the more of a throwback type tight end, but he does show some versatility lying out in the slot. They've had him single receiver as well, running slants and fades. Can go up and snatch the ball in the air. So really impressive player, and I really like what he brought to the table.
I was going to say, like, as a more recent comparison, maybe Tommy Tremble, because you were saying he's a good blocker, very aggressive at the point of attack. And I do like, and again, this is not like a comp or anything. This is more just like trying to get fans to understand what type of player this guy is. And those are some players that I think we'll definitely have to keep an eye on this upcoming season, and whether or not we see their draft stock kind of go up or it could go down. We've seen players that we expect to be top players in the draft coming into the season, and they just wander off into maybe day 3 picks. We thought Marvin Wilson was going to be a day 3. We thought Marvin Wilson was going to be like a top 10 player in the draft, and he ended up having a very bad season with Florida State, and he opted out. There were some other concerns as well. And did he go undrafted? I'm pretty sure he got drafted, unless I'm wrong. Where did he get drafted?
He was a UDFA.
He was a UDFA. Wow. So things can change. Go from a top 10 talent in the summer to UDFA in the spring. That's just goes to show that
time with the Browns as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah. That just goes to show that right now nothing is guaranteed with draft prospects coming into the season. Guys could end up opting out if they want to. Guys could end up, just totally bombing the entire season and bombing their draft stock in the process, testing awful during the draft process, just having a bad draft process in general, despite having good tape. They could go from being a top player in this draft to being an undrafted free agent, such as Marvin Wilson. So we'll learn our mistakes from this summer, and then we'll make sure we don't make those same mistakes again during the spring. I think that's a goal for the both of us, and also the rest of BlueChipSky.com. Something, and I wanted to mention this, something that's really nagged the both of us. We saw the worst basketball take in a hot minute, and it came from one of our very own, bro. I was disappointed, man. You gotta explain it, man. It's just
all right. So our guy Russ at Blue Chip Scouting, he is not a fan of Giannis Antetokounmpo at all. So he said that Giannis is DeAndre Jordan with a supermax at this point. He isn't a top 10 player in the league or the best player on his team. Then he doubled down and said Kendrick Perkins was right. Middleton is better than Giannis. And then he tripled down and said that there are 15 better players in the NBA than Giannis. Yeah. So I'll just give my thoughts. I'm going to keep it brief, man. I'm going to keep it brief. Look, he got ratioed. I told him he would get ratioed from the start. As soon as I saw the tweet, I'm like, you're going to get ratioed so hard. So, yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say. I mean, look, I understand why Giannis isn't more liked by people, because his brand of basketball is more Shaq than Kobe or LeBron or really any of those top players. But listen, he's at least a top 3 to 4 player in NBA, yes, if not top 5. I mean, top. Yes. Not even saying. See, I wouldn't have been mad if he said he's top 10, but he's not top 5. Because I mean, some people have their opinions, but he said he wasn't top 10, then you say he wasn't top 15, and then some of the players he named over him are even in the same stratosphere as him. So it's just the L. It's just
that's a major L. I mean, I gotta look at Russell's tweet here. Right now, as it stands, 62 comments, 49 retweets combined with quote tweets, only 4 likes. He got that is the definition of getting ratioed, my friend.
Yeah.
As getting ratioed at its finest. Look, man, and it it makes me laugh too because even his girlfriend was like, "Don't get me into this. I ain't doing this."
Yeah,
bro. Like Giannis is one of the best talents in basketball. He's one of the best talents in the entire world. Middleton is nowhere on the stratosphere that Giannis is on. Giannis is a 2-time MVP, dominant in the paint. He is a great defensive player. He is still improving. He's still young, still growing. His free throws could be better. I mean, we can both admit that.
Well,
hurry up the process.
Yeah, well, the thing is like he's been improving every year. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a great shooter. It's just not going to be it for him. But I mean, he's constantly improved every year, and there's a reason the Bucks are in the finals, and it's because of him and his ability to, not only be a fantastic scorer, especially in the paint, but I mean, he's one of the best defenders in the NBA, if not the best, depending on what day it is. And, we just saw last night, he made an incredible defensive play to help them win the game. So his greatness speaks for himself. Like I said, I wasn't going to say too much about it because I think it's pretty obvious that, it's a bad take and it just is what it is at this point.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. According to a certain Fox Sports guy, Giannis's block is better than LeBron's block would ever be. But here's the thing. LeBron's block was basically helped Cleveland win their first championship in 50 years. I mean, what are we doing, man? Like,
it's kind of different. It's kind of different their kind of perspective because this is going to be I'm not going to get too deep in this because this is a different discussion for another day, but it's ratings driven, it's kind of prisoner of the moment type thing. So you see incredible play and the first thing you think of is like, what play could top that, and like I said, it's a prisoner of the moment thing.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with the series because I mean that block could happen. They could still lose a series and it'll be forgotten about, and then now be sad.
Suns could win the next two, and
I mean they could eradicate everything about that block. So that's why I'm like, we might want to pump the brakes on that. We haven't even seen them win yet, and it wasn't the last game of the series. So the context is a lot different too.
Yeah, it was a great block though. It was a great block, and Anton, I thought he was going to get it. Giannis just came up because of his insane length and just swatted that thing out. I was like, dude, that was nice. But, Russell, man, you can do better than that. You definitely can do that. You can do it better. A little something before we go. For Russell, Drew Brees is better than Ben Roethlisberger, and that's facts. That will always be facts. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week. Make sure you subscribe to the Blue Chip Scouting YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Draft Nut Podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Make sure you follow the Draft Nut Podcast on Twitter at Draft Nut Podcast. And make sure you follow us on Twitter, JRod NFL Draft, at real D_Jackson, Jared Feinberg, Devin Jackson. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.